But we are going to go now to our featured presentation with Bob Rogers. And Bob is our district. I need a third screen, I'm realizing, because I want to pull other stuff up. Okay, so Bob is with, as he said before, with Rotary Club of Sebastopol, and he's also our District 5130's PolioPlus chair. He's a past district governor, 2017-18 of our district, and he's also the End Polio Now Zone 27 coordinator for this year. He's a polio survivor who takes his Rotary and ending polio activities quite seriously. But he also meets life and its challenges with humor and passion. So we are so happy to have you here with us today. I'm going to turn it over to you, Bob. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm honored to be here today. Before I start talking, I'd like to show you a video of a recent NID, National Immunization Day, that I participated in this last January. It was organized by our own past international director, Brad Howard. If you folks remember Brad, he owns, his business is Howard Tours, and he's conducted over 40 of these NID trips. So here we go. Can you hear that okay?
There you go. Sorry. Those little ones are so hard. Actually, thank you.
My name is Brad Howard. I professionally am both a tour operator. We take people overseas for purpose, professional groups and associations, and I also have commercial real estate here in the East Bay. In Rotary, I have been involved with it for about 35 years and have been a governor, which is a regional responsibility, and then been a member of the board of directors of Rotary International, the international board. So polio was a disease that was a huge issue in the early 1950s. Towards the end of the 1950s, early 1960s, they found a vaccine. Well, about that time, Rotary, by accident, decided that it was a very localized effort in the Philippines, that they could, if they had enough money, could buy enough vaccines to immunize all their kids. Well, they did it. And so Rotary as an organization said, wow, if all we need to do is get vaccines to kids, we could do that. And so since that time, we have been knocking off all these countries. 125 countries had polio when we started. Right now it's down to 2, Pakistan and Afghanistan. But because Pakistan and Afghanistan have very limited healthcare systems and border controls, it isn't limited to those countries. People are traveling across borders between those 2 countries, and Pakistan's a neighbor with India. When we immunize a child during these national immunization days, we are trying to immunize every single child in that country that are 5 years and younger. And this is what we did on this recent trip. Over a 5-day period, they're trying to immunize more than 100 million children.
And then people start. Got it.
Okay, who's next? Oh, no. Are you laughing at me? Are you laughing at me?
Waving so.
Okay. हाथ मिला रहा हूँ।
Through the hath पर, through the hath.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think we put a lot of
Whenever you walk through these villages, there's a whole pack of kids that are following you. And some of them are in areas that basically they're dumps. I mean, literally are a dump. You're watching kids play with bicycle wheels that are broken. The thing that always strikes me is how happy they are. And it's those smiles and it's those interactions with those people, the people in need, that really, I think, drive emotion for a lot of people when they're in this environment, to say, I got to help them do something. And I think that's where Rotary's job becomes most important. The community in which we were in was called Mewat. And Mewat is a largely Muslim populated place, but very impoverished. In fact, the largest industry, if you will, is making fuel for fires so that they can cook and heat their house. And that fuel is quite literally made out of cow patties.
This is the kitchen.
This is the kitchen?
I was just told that. Yeah, that's where they build the fire, they cook over the fire, and this is the kitchen right here. The man just told me, the driver just told me.
There's what's called the caste system, and so there's this whole spectrum of haves and have-nots. There are those that are called the untouchables, and in society they really don't have a place. One of the parts of the polio eradication effort is one day you go from door to door looking for kids in each house to know that everyone's been immunized.
चले जाएंगे
अरे छोटे छोटे से सबूत भगा दिए क्या? सो रहा है लेना आ फिर
baby now
ले बेबी
here we go
Shoot, I missed it.
The ability to see what happens with polio comes in two parts. One, the emotion of, I'm going to stop this from happening to another kid. But the second part is helping those that didn't have the 2 drops and those people who now cannot walk. Well, there is a hospital in Delhi that many years ago, some of the Rotarians in the Bay Area came together and in concert and partnership with Rotarians in Delhi, helped fund a post-polio ward. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Matthews is the key surgeon that literally performs miracles on these people. These are people whose feet are sideways. They can only crawl on their hands and knees, and yet he's able to turn those lives into an upright life. There's a place in Jaipur called the Jaipur Foot Factory that is supported in part by Rotary and in part by others, that quite literally takes the PVC pipes that we all know that go in the ground, that carry sewage and water, and is able to turn them into a limb that can be put on a leg so that people quite literally can walk in day 1 and on day 2 be walking with a new prosthetic limb.
What is it called? Not fell on the water.
Round and round, all through the town. The people on the bus go up and down, up and down, up and down. The people on the bus go up and down, all through the town. The horn on the bus go. Can I take your picture?
Your name is? Kushi.
My name is
Hello, may I, you can identify as you wish, bring more people over here, so you can see it, and then I can open the shop.
So this Rotary Club has been dedicated to help elevate the resources and training of the teachers. And to give you a picture of the school, they've built a great building, small. There's 2 parts. One is for young children, and the other one is a vocational training school for the women of the village to learn how to sew and therefore be productive for themselves. But this school is quite literally in the middle of a pigsty, and no one wants to walk anywhere near where the pigs are hanging out. You can imagine, if you're in a village that's called a slum, the effect of having 50 people from another country come into your presence, bring you stuff and resources, and buy your goods, how that inspires them that they are better than what they have.
1 2 3 4 हमारा नंबर है.
I really didn't know what to expect coming to India. My wife and I are both Rotarians, and we came knowing that we were coming for a good cause. And we have definitely fulfilled our mission in that, and seeing lives changed, putting 2 drops of polio vaccination into a small child's mouth, knowing that that child will not suffer the consequences of a debilitating, deathly sickness called polio.
When I first did this trip, or contemplated doing it, I thought to myself, is this really just a self-satisfying thing about going over here? Wouldn't that money that I spent on this coming over here be better spent if I were to donate it to the PolioPlus campaign? And the Rotarians here put it another way. They said that our coming here is inspiring to them, that we would do that.
I think every Rotarian should have an opportunity to give a child 2 magic drops, and to see the great work that's being done in this country to help not only prevent polio, but to help those that are still suffering from the effects. It would be very worthwhile to participate in.
Probably the most inspirational trip I've ever gone on, and I've traveled quite a bit. But this trip, you can't compare it to other trips, because you're doing something good, but at the same time, you're showing, this is America, you're a foreigner, but we're all the same. We all have that feeling of we want to help each other.
I think that you can see a lot of really wonderful, lovely things amongst the dirty air and the dirty living conditions. And I spent a lot of time with kids and trying to communicate through language barriers. And there's love there. It's lovely.
Coming to India has just been an absolute blessing to see the amount of work that goes into this national inoculation day. The entire country inoculates their children. It's amazing.
It's encouraging that even though we don't speak the language down here, everybody's been warm to us, receptive. So, it gives me encouragement when I go home that, we can use this as a model so that we're not divided. We can unite around a common purpose, which is to take care of people.
Well, when we started our effort, there were 350,000 new cases annually of polio. This past year, there was about 140 cases, and that's significant. But the real difference is, why are we here on Earth? What is our legacy? And watching people take these trips, I think, helps to define that. You can't help but feel, for just random luck, I was born there and got all this good stuff, or that I could have been born here and been needing other people's help. And when you have a chance to see it and believe that you can do something about it, it makes a huge difference. So what's the future of polio? It'll be gone. What will happen next? Well, that's up to the Rotarians, and it will be up to them to decide where their passion is, where their future is, and how they can, through the effort of making friends with others, create lasting change across the globe, in their community, and in themselves.
You know, I've seen that I don't know how many times, and I still tear up every time I see it. As you can see from this video, the polio virus affects mostly children, attacking the motor neurons that control the muscles in the body. So if the muscles, the leg muscles are attacked, then the child can't walk. If the diaphragm muscles are attacked, then the child can't breathe without the assistance of a machine like an iron lung or the modern day version of a ventilator. And if it's in a developing country with a poor infrastructure, that child just dies because they don't have the support. But yet there's others like myself. I had a brief encounter with the virus and I escaped relatively unscathed. When I was 5 years old, my dad took the family to a Lions Club picnic. And midway through the day, they told me they found me underneath the picnic table crying and complaining of my legs aching. So they took me home and put me to bed. And when I couldn't get out of bed the next morning, Mom called the doctor. And she came and visited and examined me. And then they left my room and went into the living room, my mom and dad and the doctor. And I could hear some talking, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. And all of a sudden, my mom lets out this huge wail. And then she starts sobbing. I didn't know what was going on. I was scared to death. They came back into my room and packed me up and took me to Children's Hospital, which is where we were living at the time. I was there for about 3 weeks, actually a little less than 3 weeks. And I don't remember too much about that, except one thing I do remember. Mom would park the car. I was like up on the 3rd floor, and they had me in a crib and over by a window. And Mom would park the car underneath that window so I could wave to my brother and sister, because they wouldn't let them come up to the ward because they didn't know how it was contracted at that time, and they know it affected mostly children. They treated me with a therapy called Sister Kinney hot pack treatment. And this is where they took steaming, hot, wet woolen blankets and wrap them around your affected limbs as hot as you can stand and then passively exercise that limb, in my case, the legs, to max range of motion. So on the day I was discharged, Mom's rolling me out in a wheelchair towards a car, and the defiant 5-year-old in me says, "I don't need a wheelchair, I can walk to the car." Mom reluctantly agrees. So I start to stand up and I push myself off the armrest, and as soon as I let go of those, I fall to the sidewalk like a sack of potatoes. And my mom again burst into tears, and again, I'll never forget that as long as I live. But you know, as time went on, I got older, my brush with the polio virus sort of faded into the past, into the background. The only time I really thought about it was when I had to fill out a medical history form for one reason or another. It was over. Like I said, is in my past. I was a runner, a skier, a cyclist. I never felt handicapped or restricted in any way. So fast forward now to a few years after my retiring, and my wife Peggy and I moved to Sebastopol, California. And one of my neighbors starts asking me to come to his Rotary Club meetings. At first I resisted. I didn't like this idea of a weekly meeting obligation, but then I thought, he kept asking. And I thought, well, you know, might be a good way to meet people in town, being new in the community. And I actually found myself liking the club and its camaraderie. And I was soon being given Rotary information by a couple of past presidents outlining my financial and attendance obligations, among other things. And then near the end of the presentation, almost as an afterthought, one of them says, and you know, we're eliminating polio in the world. I said, what are you talking about? I thought it was lit. He says, yeah, here in the US, but not the rest of the world. I couldn't believe that I, who had polio, didn't know that fact. Well, that was the icing on the cake. Any reluctance I had about joining sort of melted away, and I ended up becoming a member of the club. But again, those first few months, I wasn't aware of any special efforts by the club as to polio, and I pretty much forgot about it again. Then later that first year, I'm attending my first district training assembly, and I'm walking down, it's at Humboldt, not Humboldt, in Ukiah, and I'm walking down the path between two buildings, and I hear a voice behind me. It says, so how old were you when you had polio? What? How the hell do you know I had polio? He says, I could tell by the way you're walking and swinging your leg. What's he talking about? I thought I walked normal. But I guess I couldn't deny it. He was right. He introduced himself as Larry Myers, our district's PolioPlus chair. I know a lot of you know him. And himself, he's a polio survivor. So we talked for a few minutes and then parted ways, going to different breakout sessions. But at the end of the day, I saw him again, and he asked me to join his committee. I said, sure, not knowing what that meant. I found out a few months later when he called and asked if I could fill in for him on a polio talk, a fundraiser, because he had a conflict. So I said yes and started doing the research as preparation for the talk. And that's when I realized the scope of the fight against this disease. So, you know, I gave the talk. I was nervous, but I think it went pretty well. But that was it. I was hooked. I'd found my passion in Rotary, and I became active in everything related to PolioPlus, from giving talks like I'm doing right now to doing a 6-day bike ride fundraiser, which you all participated in. You know, reflecting back on my life, having contracted polio at the age of 5, recovering completely and then forgetting about it, only to then accidentally rediscover it by joining Rotary many, many years later. It makes me think that some things in life happen that are beyond our comprehension. But I believe that somehow I was put here for a reason. And I think that reason is now this final push against polio. You all know the tremendous progress we've made since we started this battle in 1988. You heard Brad talk about that. When there are 350,000 children a year, that's almost 1,000 per day contracting polio in 125 countries. And we got it down in 2018 to just 33. Absolutely amazing. However, last year, we had a bump. We went up to 176 cases in 2019, from 33 to 176. Quite a dramatic increase. And this year, we're on track to perhaps even surpass that number, I'm afraid to say, with 132 cases as of 2 days ago. Clearly, there's a huge concern about this increase in the numbers. So what happened? Well, some of it's due to lack of access to certain areas because of conflict. And although the governments of Pakistan and Afghanistan and most religious leaders are backing us, there are still political and religious factions out there who oppose vaccines. Some of them even think that we're trying to sterilize their children with these drops. And in addition, in Afghanistan, the Taliban, in areas where they have control, forbid any immunizations at all. You know, we've hit huge roadblocks before, and while they are demoralizing, we've reacted accordingly and overcome those obstacles, and no doubt we will again in this situation. And then on top of all of this, COVID-19 hit. and we had to stop immunizations on March 23rd. But we will overcome these roadblocks. Like the roadblock that both Rotarians and health professionals thought would be the hardest to overcome, the elimination of the wild polio virus in India, with its 1.3 billion population, many living in slums and close quarters with each other. You saw that, some of that in the video. But we did it, with the last case occurring in January 2011. The next largest hurdle was the African continent. And after years of exhaustive work and persistence in the 47 countries that make up the region, in August 2016, we were within 2 weeks of the required 3 years without a single case in order to declare Africa free of the wild polio virus. When 4 cases emerged in Nigeria, talk about demoralizing. But we reacted with strategic and massive vaccination campaigns, and as a result, there have been no new cases since then. And 2 months ago, on August 25th, the World Health Organization officially certified the African region free of the wild polio virus. Yay! Yeah, but now we have one more summit to reach, and perhaps the most difficult one of all, due to the political and religious strife, as well as geographic challenges, and that's the combined countries of Afghanistan and Pakistan, before we can declare the world free of the wild polio virus. But now some good news. Immunizations have started up again as of July 20th, and Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other countries in the region. And for example, on September 21st, Pakistan conducted a 3-day National Immunization Day, actually days, with 270,000 polio workers going door to door, like you saw in the video, vaccinating an estimated 39 million children. You know, with numbers like that, we will win. But the truth is, we've got at the very least 3 more years to go, and most likely more before we can claim victory. You know, this has led some folks to ask, after 35 years, why should we continue to support PolioPlus? Is it 99.9% good enough? Can't we go after another disease or parasite? Well, I have an answer for them. No, because we haven't finished the job yet. Yeah, it's true that this has taken us much longer than we ever anticipated. But if we quit now, all of that work will be for naught. So while our frontline workers continue to do their important job, our job is to continue to be the advocates, keeping up the awareness and continuing to raise funds to continue the fight. For the alternative is unthinkable. To have come this far and created this unique opportunity to eliminate this disease from the face of the earth, and then quit and let polio reinfect the world, I don't even want to think about that. It's just not an option. You know, we've already saved 19 million, an estimated 19 million children from paralysis, and 1.5 million from death. So we've already made a huge difference. And we have to continue now. We're so close to winning. You know, the problem's not science. We've already proven that it can be done. The problem is political and social, and we can overcome that with perseverance and tenacity. And believe me, I know Rotarians have a lot of both of those qualities. It's estimated that if we stop vaccinating now, in a decade, there will be 200,000 new cases of polio every year. Because as we have seen with COVID-19 and last year with measles, polio is only a plane ride away. Fighting polio is expensive. This year's budget alone is $850 million to inoculate 400 million children. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to continue to raise these funds to vaccinate newborns and children missed in prior campaigns for at least another 3 years. And towards that end, hopefully you're all aware of our district's new PolioPlus Society. For a donation of only $100 or more, and your commitment to continue to donate at least $100 per year until the World Health Organization declares the world polio free, you can become a member of the District 5020 PolioPlus Society. And if you donate on or before World Polio Day, that's tomorrow, we will double your recognition points. You'll get 100 points from the Rotary Foundation and another 100 points from a generous Rotarian who wishes to remain anonymous. You'll find in your mailbox, your email inbox, right after this meeting, a flyer and a society commitment form. It should be in your mailbox in 1/2 hour. So I urge you to consider becoming a member of the society today. If you have any questions, contact either Terry or myself, and we'll walk you through the process. You know, as Rotarians, a lot of our work is focused on our youth and the following generations, the future inhabitants of our planet. And I can think of no other work that we do for the next generations, the pay it forward, if you will, that is more important than our work on eliminating polio from the face of the earth. Although we as Rotarians will most likely not directly benefit from this work, the future generations and their children, and every child born thereafter, as long as there are humans on this planet, will benefit from our selfless act of eliminating this virus from the face of the earth, from this planet, for mankind, forever. That, my friend, is paying it forward. That is service above self. That is, as past President Ian Risley said, making a difference. Thank you so much for the opportunity to update you on our fight against this disease. I hope I've convinced you of the importance of our continuing role in this battle. So no longer will a mother have to go through that moment my mom went through. That moment when they're told their child has polio. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. You are getting a standing ovation right now. If you may not be able to see that, but I want to thank you so much. And we received a proclamation from the city of Arcata, and I wanted to just pull that up for a minute here so that people had a chance to see it. And and so it goes over a little bit about it, and they're proclaiming tomorrow as World Polio Day here in Arcata. So that, I think that's great. Thank you to the City Council for doing that. If people want to see that, I can email that out to people. And then we've had quite a few people in the chat make pledges. They're going to either a one-time pledge or an ongoing one. I don't know, Terry, if you have figured out the totals of what we've brought in today. Or not. If you have and want to share that, that would be great. It's still happening, so it's kind of running.
580 so far. Thank you, Cam.
580 so far. So, and I'm actually going to do the PolioPlus Society and do. Oh, you just got another one from Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
So I'm going to do $10 a month until we lick this thing. So through the PolioPlus Society. So I don't know what that will add up to. Hopefully not millions. Hopefully we'll lick it in the next couple of years. I also wanted to share. I wanted to share one last picture, but my computer's not working that well today. So and Siva just came in on this too.
Thank you, Siva.
So anyway, I won't share that. I really appreciate it. Terry also signed up for this society. I like doing things on a monthly basis. It's easy. You sign up and you don't have to worry about it. So next week is our final Friday. And so we will be continuing all the money we raise next week for Final Friday will go to PolioPlus. So we'll add on top of what you've all done today. Bob, I want to thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to hear from you. And Fernanda, it was also great to hear from you today and to have our other guests here, Frank and Carl. I wish you all a great day and a great weekend. See you on Sunday at the Oktoberfest Feast. Thank you everybody for being here. Take care.